Tēnā tātou e te whānau. Just wait a couple more minutes to let people in. Just wait a couple more minutes. Ka pai. Ka pai everyone. So we'll go live now to, mihi to everyone. Tuatahi, tēnei te tino mihi kia koutou, kua tau mai ki tēnei pai kōrero, ki te whakarongo ki ēnei whakaaro, ki ēnei kōrero e pāna ki tēnei mea te Kope Toitū. Ko wai tēnei, hiri o ngā iwi o te moana nui a toi, mai whakatāne ki tauranga moana, ko Ngāti Pūkiko, Ngāti Awa, Ngāti Ranginui, Ngāti Rangi ngā iwi. Engari whānau mai a hau, ki konei ki te whanganui a tara. So kei Te Upoko o Te Ika, a hau e noho ana, tātou, ko au, ko taku o rangatira, ko tā maua pepi, tai awatea. So my name is Te Kawa. I've come from the Bay of Plenty, but grew up here in Te Whanganui a Tara. I'm really thankful to be one of the two Kaiārahi based up here in Te Upoko o Te Ika, who are helping to share and connect and guide our whānau here in Te Upoko on their parakore journey. So mihi atu kia Lani, my mate, who based up in Te Awa Kairangi, looking after the whānau predominantly there, and I look after the whānau pretty much Wellington, Porirua, Kapiti. So thanks for joining me here this morning for a bit of a kōrero around Kope Toitū. So what is Kope Toitū? Kope Toitū is they're reusable nappies, essentially. When I was much younger, many decades ago, I was brought up in Kope Toitū. I had reusable cloth nappies, the classic big squares with a red trim on one side, and probably have a few scars from the safety pin stabbing me in the stomach somewhere. I'm pretty sure my sisters also were brought up in reusable nappies. Back then that was pretty normal for whānau to be using reusable nappies. I don't really know the whakapapa of disposable nappies, but they're definitely much more modern, and I guess probably maybe more common these days, just broadly canvassing other whānau. I think disposables are much more common. So Kope Toitū is there's something that we, my partner and I, Rebecca, we talked about while she was hapu and before our pepe was born, and thought, okay, cool, this is going to be one of the things that we want to explore, one of the journeys we want to take about learning about Kope Toitū and learning about reusables in the modern context, different from the old school ones. So our pepe just turned 2, so we've got some pretty interesting, so it's been 2 years of using Kope Toitū, and it's been a pretty amazing journey. I want to acknowledge my partner for taking on, for agreeing to, because it's a big decision to make for us. And we talked about it, but I do want to acknowledge her for being there and sharing the load with me in terms of washing duties and folding nappies and things like that. And big mihi to our baby. She doesn't know otherwise, so this is the normal for her. And I guess that's the point of it, is to try and normalise these things. So yeah, probably start with giving a bit of context about where we are, what our lives are like, and to hopefully give a bit of context on how we came to making the decision to wanting to go on the journey of Kope Toitū. So I've been working for Parakore for, I think it's about 6 years now, and we do a lot of Parakore things in our whare, but yeah, we certainly saw this when Rebecca became hapu. We saw it as an opportunity to want to learn, and hopefully through that learning and through that journey, share that knowledge with people and friends and whānau, and through forums like this to the public to maybe help dispel some of the anxieties or uncertainties around Kope Toitū. So our home, we're in a rental property in Mātairangi, so it's kind of the eastern side of Mount Victoria. It's a small place. As a rental property, we don't really have the ability to make I guess structural changes, the physical changes to the whare in order to refine our situation. In the time that we've been in this property, we've actually moved from downstairs, a tiny little studio, to upstairs, which is a 2-bedroom unit with a bit better washing facility. So that's really helped us. But yes, we've had to navigate a few things based on the fact that we're in a rental property. Overall, I guess broadly speaking, Rebecca and I, we have the ability to make decisions based on our finances that allow us to take on the financial investment into Kope Toitū, because there are costs, obviously. Just as there are costs with disposables, there are costs with Kope Toitū as well. I'll talk about it a little bit more about the costs in a bit, but essentially you front the costs up front for Kope Toitū. You buy the Kope Toitū, whether that's brand new or second hand. So you make that investment up front, which is probably a larger outset than it is, say, disposables being maybe an ongoing thing. There have been some pretty common barriers that we've found when talking with other whānau who are using Kope Toitū. I'll talk a little bit about that. And now Pepe is, she was at a puna reo, kind of like a kōhunga hunga, an ECE, Ngā Reo e Rua, for almost a year, and now she's over at Kōhanga Reo. So that's been a really interesting journey, walking alongside external organisations and I guess the relationship around using Kope Toitū in those scenarios as well. So yeah, our principal reason for choosing Kope Toitū was principally around the opportunity to make a big impact, a positive impact for Papatūānuku. We know that a lot of our waste just goes straight to landfill, and for Kope for disposable kope, they go to landfill too. So we, as a household, wanted to reduce the amount of waste that's going to landfill. So that was a big decision for us to make that positive choice, because we decided we don't want to be contributing, and we looked at our finances and looked at the infrastructure around us and what we had and what we have. We were able to make that decision. So prior to our own experiences as kids decades ago, as Pepe decades ago, which we don't really remember, we have no experience. We had no experience with Kope Toitū, so we had a good 8.5 months of trying to work out, right, well, how do we do this? What's the setup we're going to need? Where do we get them? Who else is on the journey that we can bounce ideas around? Or people who are already on the journey that we could ask and get some tips from. So that's been really interesting. So I'll get into Kope Toitū, because I've talked about it, but I haven't actually shown you any of them yet. So I think that the big thing that we found first off when exploring the journey of Kope Toitū was just how many different options and styles there were, and rightly so, because tamariki are all comes in different shapes and sizes. So that was an interesting journey in the early stages of trying to work out which ones are going to fit Pepe. So the ones that I've got here, they are obviously a little bit on the bigger side. We had some smaller ones, but now that Pepe's bigger, we don't have them anymore. So there are a couple of different styles. So there are ones that are called, they're essentially all-in-one. So all-in-one. So this is one of an all-in-one. This is the Velcro straps. This is called, the brand is Thirsties, and essentially you have inserts which are all stitched in and sewn in to the one kope. So you have a layer on the outside which is sort of a durable layer to protect them from getting damaged or torn. They're not necessarily waterproof, but they're supposed to contain moisture to the inside of the kope. Yep. So that's one style of all-in-one. There are other ones which have I guess snap-ins. So that one's Velcro around the waist. This one's got domes. I think one of the cool things about Kope Toitū is they come in so many different colours and so many different designs on the outside, which is really, really choice. So seeing other Kope Toitū kids and seeing what they're wearing is quite fun. So this is a sort of semi all-in-one. So it's got two layers of an absorbent layer on the inside, but one of them snaps out. So yeah, that helps just with the cleaning, which we'll talk about, because for most people the two things I want to talk about are cost and cleaning. So that's another form of all-in-one. This brand is Grovia. So I've got Thirsties was that other one, that green one. This is Grovia. That's another one here which has got Velcro as well, an elastic waistband, but the pocket actually sits inside. So it opens up and it's got the absorbent layer on the inside, and it sits inside the pocket. So what that means is there's also a layer out here which catches well, the number twos really, and then the number ones the mimi gets soaked through to the inside layer. There's one more style I'll show you, and I think these ones are called pocket nappies. So again, this has got a dome snaps, and this has got a completely separate inside. So this slips inside the pocket inside the kope, if that makes sense. Kapai. Kope Toitū are really handy in terms of being able to adjust the sizes. So our Pepe is, she's a solid Pepe, good on her. We feed her well, good genes. She's right at the limit of the size. Can't quite see that. There we go. But these little domes down here, you can actually snap them down to make them make the kope a bit smaller. So it allows, longevity for the use of kope. So it means that you get a good set, and they might last quite a while, which helps to, save on the investment that you've made. So you're investing in something which will last a decent amount of time. So those ones that just showed you, those four ones there, they're what we'd call day nappies. So the day kope. So she goes to kohanga, and 7 fresh ones in a dry bag for her, and the kaiako there change kope, and then they come home and we wash those and put another fresh set in and send her to kohanga. So for night time, a slightly different nappy. You could use those at night. For our Pepe, she does a bit of mimi at night, and so if she was to wear those, they're not quite as absorbent. They're supposed to be, well, we find it best sort of maybe just as a ballpark, an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, depending on where she is in the day and how close it is to nap time or when she last had a meal. So for night time, when you've got quite a few more hours, and ideally you don't want Pepe waking up or waking you up as some parents or as whānau or as kui and kōrero. You have night nappies. So these ones are basically a giant, fluffy, absorbent, completely absorbent nappy. They're very similar to maybe that first one that I showed you. So they have a Velcro edge and they have an insert as well, which you can then pop off to wash. I'll show you there. So yeah, there's an insert inside as well. Obviously being completely absorbent, there's no waterproof layer, so that could be a problem if she was to sustain this. So you need a Nappy Liner. So we have a couple of different styles. So this is, to consider it like a jacket, he momo kosi mo te toitū pō. So this will be the night nappy she'll wear, and then this goes over the top, and then you seal that off. So it's got a higher waist, so that as much as possible things are not leaking out. For us, our Pepe, she does a reasonable amount of moving at night, so they're pretty damp in the morning. She's going to bed sort of 7:30, and we're getting up around about 6 o'clock. And the first thing I do is change her kope to get her out of that, because it's basically holding all that moisture. And then we get into our morning routine, parakuhi and things like that. So and then we're off. So yeah, when you're using a night nappy, you need a night coat as well. And again, heaps of cool styles. There's another one here which is a bit more plain, so the outside is a fabric that looks much like the green one, whereas on the inside it's got a really solid waterproof layer. This one's getting a little bit small for her now, so we're looking for some more second-hand ones of these style which are a bit bigger, to allow her to grow into it. Yes, that's a little bit about some of the examples of different Kope Toitū. There are definitely pros and cons for each style. For this yellow one, I'm a big fan of these ones if I know it's coming up to a time when she's going to do a tiko, because it's got this just little, you can't quite see that, it's got this little elastic layer in here which helps. It's like a double liner around the outside. So you've got the elastic around the outside, and then you've got another seam of elastic, and that helps contain things better. We've been really fortunate. We've only had, in these 2 years with Pepe and Kope Toitū, there's only been 2 instances, or am I blocking out a couple? No. Only a handful, say, of instances where there's been maybe a bit of leakage, and that's potentially a combination of not putting it on properly, a large volume. In one case, it was just the kope wasn't really suited to handle that. So we're pretty onto her routine now, her physical routine, and so we kind of know within the ballpark of the day that when she might be doing a tickle, and so we make sure we got a good one on. So, for example, this one has got some good water absorbency, but just the style of it, for whatever reason, just doesn't fit around her legs quite as well, and this could lead to potential leakages if we were wearing this at the time that she's likely to be doing it. There's no certainty. Pepe are just like us. Things change, rhythm changes, routine changes. But generally speaking, we've got it down now after a couple of years of how roughly when in the day she's going to be doing a tickle. So we're mindful of that. So that's one of the ones I really like, and for our family we really like these ones. These ones are really handy. The Velcro ones are really handy. In particular, I just find sometimes they fit a bit better around the waist. The dome ones, you can see they're quite, they're fixed points. So this one, where she's currently at in terms of her size, is a little bit offset. So if she was wearing it this over here, then that would be too tight, and wearing it over here is probably just a touch on the loose side. So, but she's going to grow, and that's just one of the things we go with. These ones are good, particularly I found these really good when she was small. They've got a really you can probably see the way that the fabric gathers around here. Really awesome elasticness around her legs, but they're a little bit low. so they're riding lower on her than say some of these other ones. So these ones are probably not going to last too much longer. In terms of being able to fit her, they're durable and they're going to last. They'll go, good couple of years more. Anyway. Also, just I forgot to mention at the start, if you've got pārtai, please by all means drop your pārtai in here. I can see a couple of people. Tēnā koe aroha nui, oti. If you've got pārtai, please drop them in here and I'll come back to them. Just talk about a few of these things first. And we really like these night nappies, so they're awesome. So how do we get into it? Big mihi to Rebecca. She did a lot of research into what are the different options out there in terms of being able to access Kope Toitū. They're, broadly speaking, they are an investment, and I'll talk to some of the different prices. We're really fortunate that locally here there's an organisation called Nappy Mojo. Pretty sure they service all across Aotearoa, but really fortunate they're not actually too far from us here in Te Upoko. And they are a rental service, so Kope Toitū rental service. So we explored the price, and it gave us the opportunity right at the start, even before Pepe was born, we arranged for their starter kit to arrive to us a few weeks beforehand, because Pepe come when they're ready, eh? So one of the tips they have on their website is to get your kit early, just in case. So it's $170 for 6-week hire. So it's around about $30 a week, basically. So you hire these nappies. They come in a really big bucket. They come in a set number of them. There's different options, and you basically hire them. You wash them. Nappy Mojo have got awesome resources on their website about how to wash Kope Toitū. I'll talk about our washing shortly. But it means that you can rent it, and if it's not working so well, you can send that back. Obviously you've got it for a period, but for some whānau, for whatever reason, Kope Toitū might not work, so in which case it allows you to sort of to send them back and not have made a potentially quite a large investment. There are other ways of accessing Kope Toitū, so there are some really cool Facebook pages on Facebook where you can pick up bulk lots of second-hand Kope Toitū. They're from people whose pepe have grown out of them. They might be destashing, but they're in really good nick. Like, for example, this one I was talking about, pepe's getting a bit big for this, but this could totally be used again. This could totally be used, I don't know, at least one, maybe two more pepe potentially. It depends how you look after them too. So as with anything, we want to look after our resources and look after our taonga, so they go the distance, so we don't have to buy new or make new again. So it's highly likely that once she grows out of this, then we'll wash them, sterilise them, put them online, and someone else can benefit from them. What else? So what are the other things you need with Kope Toitū? Well, there's the wiping process, and for us, we're fortunate that Nappy Mojo also came with a bunch of cloth. They kind of almost look like flannels, face cloths, but they're stitched on the edge, on the seam, and we use these instead of wet wipes. So we have a stash of these, and we'll go through to the room shortly and have a look. I'll show you the setup so you can see that. But essentially, we don't use wet wipes either. We use these washable cloths, which are awesome. There are times also when we need a liner. So if on the rare occasion Pepe has a rash, we'll apply some rongoā. So this is a Pepe baby balm, It's a baby balm made by Hope Botanicals, who's my sister. So that's the plug there. And it's essentially, it's mostly kawa, but it's got a lot of other rongoa in there as well. And that helps to help get rid of the rash. Aroha mai, it's not kawa. Anyway, lots of things, lots of delicious things on here. But if you were to put this on pepe and then just a reusable nappy straight on, it might actually decrease the absorbency properties of the kope because of the, I guess, the kind of the wax and the oils and things like that. So we also have reusable liners. So these are just really light sort of synthetic things. These are also available at the same places generally you can get these, the wipes. So we'll put this then on the nappy, and then so this sits next to the skin. So Pepe's got her balm on. This sits in the layer between Pepe and the Kope Toitū, and it helps just to prolong the life of the Kope Toitū. Again, want to look after those, look after these taonga. What else? Oh, yeah, we talked about the liners and the balm. So yeah, I'll take you through to the setup area, to our setup area soon. So washing. So we're going to get into I guess the nitty gritty of washing. For a lot of well, for not everyone, but a lot of people, washing is can feel quite daunting. The idea of dealing with tūtai, dealing with mimi, and by all means, for some people in their home setup where they live, they might not have or might not feel that they have the facilities available to deal with that. Lots of different ways of going about that, and I'll talk about. So when we're downstairs in the small open plan studio thing, we used basically a big bucket, and in the shower, and we washed the kope with the tūtai in that bucket. So we had it was a dish scrubber. What's that style? But it was a particular colour and dedicated to be only used for cleaning Kope Toitū. It was really mindful of tikanga as well, and really trying to ensure that we're protecting ourselves in terms of our hygiene, and keeping spaces of tapu and noa separate. But for us in the facility that we have, it was the shower was the wet area. The bucket was the place that we scraped everything off. And right next to the shower there was the wharepaku. So after we did the rinse, using the shower head to rinse off and scrape off and scrub off, once that bucket was at its limit, with water and all the waste, and then we just pop it down the wharepaku. Upstairs now it's a slightly different setup. The shower and the toilet are not near each other, but also out the back we've got a washing area. So where the washing machine is, there's a little sink there, and essentially that's now our dedicated space to washing and scrubbing. So that happens in a different part of the whare now. I've got friends who they have a bucket, like it's a proper big paint bucket. It's not the kind of ones that you put a wetsuit in. I mean, you could use whatever really, but they've got a big bucket, and one of my friends actually made a rainwater tank collection thing outside, and they collect the rainwater, and it goes into when it rains it goes into a big tank, which they then use as their water to scrub. I forget actually what their situation is. I'm not sure whether they put it down, take it back inside and put it down in the wharepaku, or have another situation outside. It's about problem solving, I guess, really, is understanding what you need to do. First and foremost, it's about hygiene, and about trying to clean the kope as well as you can. Because the cleaner the kope, the longer they're going to last, and potentially they'll be used by other people, or multiple pepe, whatever, how we describe it. So yeah, that's the scrubbing side of things. not gonna lie, sometimes it's pretty confronting, particularly if Pepe's quite sick or has a tummy bug. Then things can be a bit more liquid than they will be solid. Honestly, the times that things are, I guess, flowing normally and the tūtai are maintaining shape, for one of a better description, they're the dream times, because once you change Pepe, put on a new kope and she's off running around, we just go into the wharepaku and flick, and that tūtai will just fall off, and there's sometimes, if you've caught it early enough, there's barely even a mark on the kope, and that's awesome. Then there are definitely other times when whatever she's been eating, or if there's something going on in her tinana, it's a bit more liquid, and that can be a bit more a bit more involved when you're there cleaning it. So for us, our routine is actually I'll go through, because I'll show you the setup, so that makes sense. Bye, so no Mikey. My toe whare. So this is our little kit here. So on top of the drawers, this is where our change mat is. Over here we've got, so this is the water bottle, which is for our Kope Toitū area. We've got a glass jar. It was probably something like, it was I don't know, some kind of jar with a sauce in it, which we sterilise and wash, and that's now which we use for water. And then we've got our balm here. So when it comes time to change, the kope are lined up in here. So we have our reusables, have our night nappies, and have our accessories. And then, change. We'll take off the old one, dip this in the water, and then wipe it. And then we've got a bucket down the side, which we use. It's just a little bucket we picked up from somewhere like Bunnings, which has got a lid and a handle. That's just the main thing. So basically then this, our kope would go into here, and once we've changed, then we would take that through to the wash house, and that would be where we go and tidy things up afterwards. So the bucket in there, things don't stay in there, because if they stay in there too long, they can get a little bit funky. So we have another place in the wash house where we put things. Most people, they have a bigger bucket of some sort, and they have a lid to keep the smells in. For us, we're washing every day. So every day we are doing a cleanse. Sorry, so we clean the kope every day. So just the way our whānau setup functions, we take turns. So I'll do it one night and Rebecca does another night. We will do the actual load in the washing machine every 2 nights. So every night we're cleaning the majority of things off. The first night then they go into a particular bucket, which is the storage bucket, and that's got a lid on it, so it stops any smells. The kope have been scrubbed, they've been rinsed, so they're not sterile, but they're pretty much clean. But they need to be, they'll potentially still have things on them. So then the second night, we then give them a big wash, scrub those out, so the load of 2 go in into the washing machine, and then we go through the cycles. So that's another thing as well. Washing machines, there's all different styles of washing machines. Our washing machine that came with this rental property, Fisher & Paykel, real simple top loader, and that needs a little bit more time or a particular process in order to make sure they're nice and clean. Something like a more modern front loader, which is really efficient in water usage as well, they do a much better job of sterilizing these. So one of the resources, and I'll put all these resources back in the description title after the slide finishes, but essentially there are websites. Nappy Mojo is one of them, but also there's cleanclothnappies.com, washing/guidelines, and you can find out you basically find your kind of washing machine, and it will tell you the kind of process. So for our fishing pāko top loader, we have to do 2 cycles. We do a heavy duty hot wash for the first run. Those runs aren't very long. They're probably in the order of somewhere between an hour and 90 minutes. And then we have to do a second one. And that second one, once the hot water's filled up and it's agitated a little bit, we then have to pause it and let it soak for half an hour. And then we finish off the washing cycle. So there's a reasonable amount of water usage with that, and that's probably one of the considerations that you need to make if you're looking at Kope Toitū in your journey. One of my friends, their whānau lives out on Te Ika, and they're off-grid, they're on tanks, and one of the questions she asked me was, what do you do about water usage? And yeah, it depends on what access you might have. I mean, for some people, they might have the means to put in a whole second tank just so they can do this and collect rainwater. In a time of water crisis, you have to make some pretty big decisions. Having a really efficient washing machine really helps. It really, really does help. But that might also be another financial outlay, so it makes it maybe a little bit less accessible for some people. So yeah, there's lots of things to consider. Seen our setup, talked to you a little bit about our process. In the summer months, we hang the kope outside, so this time we've been hanging them outside now, and that's really good. Tamanui te rā mihi ana ki a ia ka tino mā ia i ngā kope. There's nothing like kope that have been hanging outside in the sun. Not only they're fresh and clean and that crispy, that feeling, but also the sun does an incredible job of bleaching them. In the winter months, we are fortunate here in this rental property that this place came with a dryer. So in the winter months we use a dryer because it would be to try and keep on top of the number of kope coming through, and trying to minimise moisture inside the whare. So yeah, again, another consideration is what facilities or what whiteware you have in order to be able to do Kope Toitū. So spoke a little bit earlier about our kōhungahunga, our early childhood centres and kōhanga reo. We're really fortunate. The first place Taiawatea went to, they were already really familiar with Kope Toitū, so it was a real relief because we were a bit unsure what happens if she goes there and that's not something they're familiar with. What decisions, or how does that change our decisions? Do we prioritise the kope over potentially the place? Fortunate that wasn't an issue. So yeah, all the kaiako there and the kaimahi there trained in how to use and how to look after pepe that are there in their care with Kope Toitū. So really stoked. Basically, when in the morning, one of the things we do is get a whatever bag she's going to kōhanga with. It's currently at kōhanga, so I can't show you that one. But in that bag there are 2 bags specifically for Kope Toitū. One bag is for the fresh Kope Toitū for that day to be packed in, and then the next bag is kind of just a regular wet bag, and that would, so once she's been changed, that will go into here, and when you pick up Pepe, we pick up this bag as well. That comes home, and then those get washed at night, and we have 2 of those wet bags, so they rotate around, so they get a chance to dry as well. Really fortunate she's just started at kōhanga reo now, which we're really thrilled. Waimari ana mātou. And they are also really familiar with Kope Toitū. A lot of the other whānau there already have their tamaiti and tamariki in Kope Toitū, so really stoked. Same process there. We take a fresh batch of Kope Toitū in the morning, along with spare clothes and things like that, and then that bag comes back mostly empty, or there might be a couple left over, and then a full wet bag, which we then deal to that night. So yeah, it's a pretty straightforward process from that perspective. the whānau there are really into it. They're a parakore kohanga, so they're right into it. I will say that for a lot of kohanga that's, or certainly the kohanga I've spoken to here in Te Upoko, some of them are really into it, some want to get there, and some for whatever reason aren't quite at that stage of their journey yet. And e pai ana. If you are part of a kohanga reo, if you are a whānau who are at a kohanga reo, or any ECE, any kohunga, and you know that they are wanting to explore the possibility of Kope Toitū and what that might involve, and the kind of systems that they might need to set up in terms of health and safety. My understanding is there's generally manuals that are available for them to access, but our Kaiārahi, we can help support that too. We can help support that journey by providing some more information. I'm really happy to zoom into someone and just have a little kōrero about what happens, but also amongst our kohanga reo whānau, they get together so often, share their stories and share their experiences, so that other teina kohanga who are coming on board can learn too, and see what they've been applying at this kohanga reo to apply at this kohanga reo, for example. So yeah, really fortunate that's our scenario, that both the kōhungahunga Pepe went to, or is at, can work with Kope Toitū. So down to costs. I'll just check my notes, see if there's anything else I need to get onto. No. So Kate Meads, she's got an incredible knowledge and resources available on her website. And one of the things on her website is that reusable nappies for the period of a Pepe's, while they're able to be using reusable nappies, so i.e. before toilet training or potty training, they can save approximately $4,000 per child, which is quite a lot. And for a whānau, that could be quite a significant amount of money to have left over, or have available, or not have been using week to week. We're buying kope disposable ones. So saving money with reusables, I mean obviously we can save a whole lot of money. In principle though, absolutely, you're using the same thing and getting good mileage out of it, so not using disposables. I don't actually know the cost of disposables, so I can't really give a comparison, so I'll just go with Kate Meads' savings there. But yeah, it's really important to try different styles. So for us, the Nappy Mojo service was really helpful because it had a whole bunch of different styles in the kit itself, so it meant that we could try this one and go, oh yeah, the Groviers are better than the there's Grovier, and then there's, gosh, I forget the names, Thirsties and the Rumparoos and all sorts of things. You know, there are a couple of reusable nappy companies that are completely Aotearoa owned. I think Kekoa is one of them. If anyone knows them yet, please chuck them in the comments below. What else? So yeah, for the cost of different styles. So if you were looking to buy these one-off, per item, the kind of cost that we're seeing is approximate cost can be somewhere between $30 or $40 for the all-in-ones. So the snap-ins, which I don't have, they've basically got a liner which you snap in with dome clips. They're in the realm of about $25 for these pocket ones. They can be from 10, but can also go up to say $40 each. So there's a reasonable amount of cost there. When you're thinking of doing Kope Toitū, you have to think of how many you might be going through to get an idea of how many you're going to need. So for Pepe's routine, it's in the realm of around about 5 a day. Kope Toitū, I'm told you probably change a bit more frequently than you say would with disposables, just because you're working with cloth and fabric, and maybe that doesn't have quite the same absorbent properties as some of the chemical things that they've got in disposables. So you technically might be using 1 or 2 more a day than say disposables. For me, that's okay because actually you want to keep things fresh, you want to keep things clean down there. So for us, we're working on around about 5 a day. If we're going to wash every 2 days, that's 10. While those ones are then drying, you're going to need another rotation of another 5, so it's only got 15. And then for backup, because people might be sick and going through things pretty quickly, you might want another 5. So quite quickly you're suddenly needing 20 nappies, and if you're going to buy those new, that's a reasonable amount of money, but as I said indicated earlier, there are also ways of accessing used nappies. So there's a Facebook page called New Zealand MCN discussion. So MCN is modern cloth nappies, so that differentiates these fronds from the old school just big square that you fold into triangles and do origami and potentially stab your child with a safety pin. So people use those, and then they might destash and sell them, like if they're not having another child or not passing on to another whānau member or whoever, someone else in the community. So there's constantly these nappies available and batches of them because people will generally sell them in a batch. So that becomes way more accessible. They're way cheaper, and again, usually most other families have a bit of a selection, a bit of a range too, just because that's the way things are. I'm yet to see anyone who's maybe selling a batch of all one particular style. There's usually different styles involved for whatever reason. I think it's just but that's great because then again you can get a chance to try out the different sizes, try out the different styles if it's something a little bit different, and be aware of what applications you might use them for, what scenarios you might use them for. So they the things to check when you are buying second hand is, well, there's usually a list. They've actually got on the MCM website, they've got it on the Facebook page, sorry, they've got a list of the things to look for. And there's also, they have a clear instructions for people who are selling, the sterilisation and hygiene process that each person needs to do before they make these kope available to sell. Because you don't really want to buy kope that are stained or discoloured, and you want to know that they're nice and sterile too, so that's one of the responsibilities of the seller. So those standards can be found, and sellers make sure that that's known, that they've done that process. So again, I'll put the links to these places that I'm talking about. So far we're talking about Waste Free with Kate, Nappy Mojo, and New Zealand MCN discussion group. I'll put those in the description of the video. So in the early parts of Baby's journey, when we were navigating our journey as first time parents, we also use an app to kind of just monitor and for us to plug in information so we would know roughly when she's gone to sleep, how long she's been to sleep for, because for other parents out there, you can get into that haze and you're not too sure, has it been 10 minutes, has it been an hour and a half. So that really helped us, but also in the app was changing nappies, so we could punch in, had a wet nappy, we've changed it, we've had a kope with tiko in it, we've changed that. And so it meant that we were actually getting really interesting data. So we don't use that currently anymore. We're much more into our routine. But a quick sort of back of the napkin estimate is we potentially have prevented 2,500 to potentially 3,000 nappies going to landfill in the first 2 years of Pepe's life. That's based on the number of changes that we've done. So that's a pretty significant amount, and that might be something that you might find helpful if you're starting on that journey, is to use that app to see how you're going, because it's pretty cool to check in and go, wow, 1,000 nappies, far out, that's really amazing. Just a little way to kind of keep you motivated in between those times of scrubbing dirty nappies. Council data suggests that nappies can make up to 11 to 14% of the waste stream, and that's quite a lot. If we think about how much waste is going to landfill, that's over 10% could be nappies. That's of domestic waste streams, so the things coming from whare. So it's again another positive for us to feel that we're making a positive contribution. Want to acknowledge again, we have certain privileges and access to infrastructure and to knowledge and things like that, to resources, water for example, to allow us to be in a position to make this decision. So I want to acknowledge that it might not be possible for everyone, even if you want to get on board with this. Actually, one thing I will say is that there's totally a thing called part-time use. So some people might use reusable night nappies, for example, and that's just the one thing that they can do because, maybe at their early childhood centre, they don't have the ability they're not yet at the journey where they can manage reusable nappies at their kōhungahunga. So they might be in just reusable nappies around home. That's awesome. If you're doing it part-time, wicked, meke. That's a really good way to try things as well. So you can start part-time, potentially, rather than like us when we made a full-on 100% investment right at the start. One interesting stat from website was if every baby used one cloth nappy, that would mean 1 million less disposables going to landfill each week. So it's kind of like that thing people say, it's only one straw, said 8 billion people, so if we're just thinking about the collective impact that we're having if we're just doing just little bits and pieces, if we can. So again, I'll just reiterate those considerations: water usage, having access to water to be able to wash Kope Toitū, that's one of the considerations. Part-time use is a really great way to start out. No matter how old your peppy is at the moment, you could potentially just start off using some disposable ones at night or one in the morning or whatever you want. Really important to consider kōhungahunga situations. Do they have systems? Do they have access to knowledge? Do they have kind of manuals on and the setup in their tini kope area, the nappy changing area? And again, just want to reiterate that our Kaiārahi parakore, we can help support that. And personally, I'm happy to support that too. Everyone's in a different situation. We really want to acknowledge the privilege and opportunity that we have to be able to make this decision. We're really proud of it, and hopefully our journey and sharing this of knowledge, and sharing with friends as well, who are who are maybe brings beautiful taonga into their lives. We get asked a lot of questions about that too. So hopefully that's our learning journey is helping other people learn too. Even potentially not using wet wipes and using the cloths, that might be something to start with potentially too. Things that we would like to improve for us, ultimately we're really mindful that there's a whole lot of water and the waste going down into a wastewater treatment system. And for us here in Te Upoko, that means contributing into the wastewater system, which then actually gets turned into sludge and goes to landfill. So the tiko that we're washing goes to landfill currently. Sadly, we don't have the ability to change that at this point because we're in a rental property. If we had our own whenua, we would be looking to do something like a composting toilet, or have a system where we could actually process the tiko so that it wasn't even going into that sort of scenario. But what we're really proud of is that we're making an active contribution through this process and through this learning, and enacting our rangatiratanga and being able to take control of the things that we can take control of. I don't have control of the wastewater system, but the more we're doing things like this, the more we can actually change, or we can showcase different ways of being, and understanding the practices around being more responsible where you can. So I'll just have a quick look to see if we've got any pārtai before we wrap up the next couple of minutes. Kia ora oti, tēnā koe. So can you dry them in the dryer, or do they have to be hung out on the clothesline? You can absolutely dry them in the dryer. So we in the summer months when there's more sun, because our actual back area is also shaded by trees, so we actually have to wait till Tamanui Te Rā is high enough in the sky to be able to get to the clothesline. And obviously longer days and better weather, we hang them outside. We hang our kope outside on the line, but in winter we have a clothes dryer. So again, something that we're fortunate to have. Any other pātai? Kia ora tere, I'm pretty sure I got stabbed by the nappy pins. Yeah, totally. I think if you grew up in the 80s or earlier, that was a pretty normal thing. So yeah, really thankful that our Pepe, she has Velcro or domes now, so I don't have to worry too much about that these days. Did you use liners with your kope? Aye, what? So well, okay. So some of these by design they sort of have a liner in them. So the actual absorbent layer is inside in a pocket, so it's kind of got a liner. But we also have these liners, which we put on here too. We don't do that every time, so we only have these liners if Pepe's got a nappy rash and or it's got a rash, because this liner helps to keep the balm, the rongoā balm, away from the actual nappy itself, because if the balm gets onto the nappy, that might reduce the actual absorbency, the absorbent qualities of the nappy, whereas this helps just to put a layer in between, so then when we change, this comes out. I mean, if it's a solid tickle, then this can also then just be like flipped and it will fall into the wharepaku. But then this gets washed as well. So yeah, we have liners, but we don't use them all the time, because sort of by design these kope have liners. But yeah, we use them principally to maintain the absorbency qualities of the kope. Ka pai. So I think that looks like all the questions that came through. Again, ka nui te mihi ki a koutou, e hono mai nei. Ki runga i tēnei pai kōrero, ipurangi, kia whakawhiti whakaaro kōrero hia, whakarongo ki au, me o mātou pukinga mō tēnei mea te Kope Toitū. Hope you enjoyed a little tour of one of the rooms of our whare. Hope you were able to gain some knowledge and learning from this. Again, there's lots of different ways to enter the journey of Kope Toitū, and want to acknowledge that for whatever reason it's something that might not be available to everyone at this point. The point for us doing it is to make a positive impact in regards to waste to landfill, but also by doing this and sharing these stories, is renormalizing this and helping people consider what they might be able to do, or help whānau or kōhunga consider setting up systems to allow people to participate in this. Big mihi to the tuakana out there who have been on this journey for a while and who we've learnt a lot of information about to help us get started on this journey. Really thankful that we live in a time where there are resources and systems that are available to help make things a little bit easier, i.e. the kope rental services, and heaps of information online to help answer those questions and hopefully get past some of the barriers. Aira, koenei taku e mihi ana ki a koutou, e tū a kanohi a tinana, me māngai mō tō tātou whānau, e uana ki tēnei kaupapa o te Kope Toitū. If you want to find out more or have other questions, if you're watching this a little bit later on, drop in a question in the comments below and I'll come back and answer them. And again, I will put links to the things I've referenced in the description of this video. So nō reira, e te iwi, kia pai rā tō rā, tō tūrei, ngā mihi ana ki a koutou, ki o koutou pito o tēnei o ngā motu, o Aotearoa, o te Waipounamu, mō rekohu hoki. Aira, mauri ora ki a tātou.